Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I want to come on to talking about or getting your viewpoint on some of the challenges in procurement when they're looking at moving forward with their transformation, digital
Hmm.
transformation, making those steps. But before we get
Yeah.
into that, I'd just be
Okay.
interested in your view, what you were talking about earlier with regards to the implementation of technology and the kind of strategic approach to it in terms of having linked best of breed systems and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
I, it's quite interesting. I always find it fascinating understanding people's viewpoint on the kind of process versus technology kind of conversation, in the sense that some
Uh-huh.
companies will try and take technology and just basically bend it to fit a bad process. And some companies will do a digital transformation where it's just all about the technology. What's your view on the kind of balance there?
Okay, so I actually just posted about this a couple weeks ago. Like, should we be looking for technologies that can meet our process needs, or should we be looking at a technology where, like, the old moniker is you're going to adopt best in class processes to meet the needs of this particular technology, right? So what is that? I actually got like a 50-50 split on the comments around that, by the way.
Oh,
So some people are thinking, hey, technology is the way that it is today can bend to our process, and our process is going to reign king. Where other people are like, no, 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 like the technology is going to dictate our process. I personally think I used to be one of those people that are like, the technology is going to dictate our process, but I think we're at the point today where we can be a little bit more flexible around that and allow a process to kind of more dictate what the technology looks like. Now, here's the caveat to all of what I said. You don't want to get crap faster. And that's what I tell people all the time. If you have a bad process, the technology is not going to fix it, right? So if you're going to go the route of having this process dictate what the technology looks like, you need to make sure that your processes are fantastic. And I think that what's going to happen with these technology firms as you're going out and you're going and consulting with your clients around how things should be implemented, I think there's going to be a little bit more focus on what that process should look like in the future, and bringing those best in class options to the table so we can really look at that process. But it's not like force fitting it into the technology. The technology can be I don't want to say manipulated because that's not the right word, but
configured.
molded into, yeah, yeah, configured into the right way of working for that business. So even this morning, like I was on a conversation with one of my clients, and they have a very particular process that is very particular to their business, and the technology doesn't have a way to support it.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Like, we're trying to put a process that's core to their purchasing process into a system, and it's like we're really struggling to figure out a way to get it done.
Yeah, I had a really interesting
Yeah,
conversation with Adam Brown from Maersk, and he's their
yeah.
head of all of the digital procurement stuff that they're looking at. And if you look at that shipping sector, in terms of the problems that they need to solve, price variability, time zones, all the distribution side of it is hugely complicated. And
Hmm.
actually, he's building a great team that are doing some of those things for themselves. So
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a balance, and I certainly, from our point of view, we are constantly being educated by our customers and prospects as well. And I think it is essential to have that flexibility. But by the same token, there needs to be the tech companies need to make sure they're not just automating a bad process for the sake of it to try and keep that customer happy.
Yep.
And the client needs to make sure that they're not just approaching it by just saying, oh, let's just get some tech, that's going to solve everything, where they maybe haven't addressed the bigger issues behind the scenes that are kind of covering up loads of problems.
Yeah. And we actually, when we go into organizations, we actually, the old kind of saying was people, process, technology. We've actually started peeling back that onion a little bit, because it's actually more than that, right? So people, process, technology, sure, but policy plays a big role in that, because not only procurement policy, but finance policy, other policies that we need to consider across the organization. You have data, which we've already talked about. Like, what's your data layer? What does that look like? Are we trying to transform it? Where do we want to go with it? Metrics, it's a big driver a lot. Like I had a conversation with a client the other day and I was like, why don't your buyers have DPO targets? That if they had a DPO, like a days payable outstanding target that they could go after, it would solve actually a lot of your process issues. So what type of metrics are we holding ourselves accountable to? How are those going to transform? You have culture, you have organization, right? So how are we organizing the work? How do we get the work done? And how does the culture dictate what we can and cannot do in this transformation? And I don't know, how many did I go through? I think that was 8, but I'm not sure.
All I can say is,
the other factors.
I will be keeping an eye out for the acronym that can capture that lot, because that's brilliant. It's really good. So yeah,
Okay.
you started with kind of like that's a challenge I'll lay down for you. But people, process,
Yeah.
technology, policy, data, culture, and organization.
Yeah, and metrics. Yeah.
That's it has to be more sophisticated as the procurement function evolves, as procurement becomes more digital, as we push into greater granularity and more of a focus on using data for strategic action rather than just being transactional. So I think it makes a lot of sense that maxims like that always kind of made sense maybe 10, 15 years ago need to move with the times as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about the user experience and change adoption, you have to look at all those different factors to really truly be successful. It's not just a technology implementation anymore. Like you need to understand how that's going to fit into the bigger picture, and all of those different elements help you think through what that bigger picture might include.